Hi, Kimberly Creal here with Creal and Accountancy Corporation. I'm here to talk about the Paycheck Protection Program's loan forgiveness application. Based on the SBA and Treasury's guidance issued last Friday, May 15th, I've created an Excel workbook that I hope will help you to generate your loan forgiveness application figures, and so that you don't have to go through every detail of the pages that they released. It's like a bunch of high school math word problems, and those can get pretty tricky. And when you're talking about potentially thousands of dollars of this money being forgiven, that can be really important to know what it is the SBA is wanting from you. So I've put this together in a way that I hope will be very easy to follow. Let's get started. If you're self-employed with no additional employees, this is going to be a pretty straightforward calculation. So first, let's start with your covered period. That's going to be the 56-day period starting on the day that you received your PPP loan proceeds. The way you're going to calculate your payroll cost for the purposes of loan forgiveness is really the same way that you did for your application. You're going to be taking your 2019 Schedule C, line 31, dividing that by 52 weeks, and then multiplying that by 8 to determine an 8-week equivalent of your 2019 net income. Next, you'll need to calculate your non-payroll costs. The SBA has clarified that these costs actually don't necessarily have to be paid during that 56 days. They can also be counted if they're incurred, as long as those incurred costs are paid on your next billing date for that bill. Here's an example. My covered period began on May 1st, so it will end on June 25th. I paid my May office rent on April 28th, but because the whole month of May is included in my covered period, my May rent is incurred, even though I paid it a little bit early, so that counts. Now I paid my June rent on May 30th, and that's paid during my covered period, so that counts. Now, when it comes to July rent, though, the way I'm understanding this is that when I prepay my July rent before June 25th, it can be included here, even though the invoice for my July rent might be dated July 1st. One caveat is that if you have a business mortgage payment, whether that be on an office building or an equipment loan, you can't prepay any mortgage payments. That is very specific in the guidance, but they don't specifically say anything about prepaying rent or utilities. Now be careful with non-payroll costs though, because payments totaling more than 25% of your total loan amount won't be forgiven in your calculation. The way to substantiate these costs is by providing your bank with invoices, receipts, bank statements, and other specific documents to support when the payment was made. So a list of those specifics is on the instruction sheet of the workbook. Now let's get into the forms.
Let's start with tab C because two numbers from this screen will flow to your tab B in order to complete your calculation. Here on tab C, we need to report your compensation on line 9. For those of you whose net profit from self-employment last year was greater than $100,000, your maximum amount to be recorded here is $15,385. That is the 8-week equivalent of $100,000, which is the cap for the purposes of the PPP. As another example, let's say your net profit last year was $55,000. In that case, your compensation to be forgiven will be $8,462. For the purposes of this example, let's say your net profit last year was $125,000, so your maximum compensation here is $15,385. Next, because you had no employees, you are going to reflect here on line 13 that your full-time equivalent quotient is 1. These two figures flow over to tab B. Here you will record any applicable non-payroll costs on line 2 through 4, and of course your PPP loan amount on line 9. This chart populates your maximum loan forgiveness.
I really hope that was helpful. Like I mentioned before, you're going to take these numbers and plug them into whatever portal or application form that your respective bank might be wanting you to use. I wish you the best of luck, and please feel free to reach out with any questions.